Hey guys, welcome back to the Holderhek channel. This is going to be the final, although not really final because I'm going to be making a PvP version of this thing, BIS list for Classic WoW for the enhancement Shaman. I'm going to do a couple different versions of this PVE BIS list. We're going to have an Orc version, we're going to have a Tauren and Troll version, and then within those two versions, there's going to be some subtle changes and some things that you can personally change depending on what you want to do. So, all of that being said, there's quite a bit to go over, so let's do that. So here, the first list that is presented is going to be for an Orc wielding an axe. If you're wondering why you're still wielding an axe in Phase 6 when the Might of Menethil exists, we'll go over that in a moment, but just understand that's what this gearing is for. So we're going to go right down the list. I'm going to try to explain things as quickly as possible. You're still wearing Crown of Destruction. We got this thing back in Phase 1 if you were lucky, and when I said you're never taking it off, believe it or not, you're never taking it off. There is a side grade that you could have with the Southwind Helm, and although 60 upgrades lists it higher because it has hit on it, with world buffs it's about equivalent, but Crown of Destruction, Southwind Helm, both of these, that's going to be your go-to till the end of the game. Storm Rage's Talisman of Seething, as we have right here, you could have picked up the Barb Choker in Phase 5, and Storm Rage's is just a slightly bit better with that 2% crit, although you will notice that we have a very high crit percent chance now, so if you just want to go with the Barb Choker to get a little bit more attack power, that's probably a better choice. And the Barb Choker, as we know, is basically just an IFAKar with stamina, but don't sleep on the stamina. You really don't want to equip things that don't have stamina unless they are like literally the best thing in the game. So we're going to go with Storm Rages just because, but either one of these is probably fine for the end of the game. Then we have the Mantle of Wicked Revenge. We picked that up in Phase 5. Pretty much no competition except for Feral Druids on this thing, so that's pretty good. The Shroud of Dominion. This is the best cloak for DPS in the game. It drops off of Saffron or Saphirion, whatever. The Frost Dragon. Really good cloak. If you still need hit for whatever reason, obviously Cloak of Concentrated Hatred's very good. Or if you never managed to pick up the Cloak of Concentrated Hatred, once again, because we do have an absurd amount of crit in this gear, you could always go with the Cloak of the Scourge, and you get a hefty bit of stamina on that cloak too. So any one of these three is probably going to be your go-to. Shroud of Dominion, Concentrated Hatred, or Scourge. The Ghoulskin Tunic. This is the only thing in the game that is an actual direct upgrade to the Savage Gladiator chain, which is incredible considering, again, Savage Gladiator chain comes from BRD. But yeah, so you're going to be finally replacing your Savage Gladiator chain with a Ghoulskin Tunic, 80 attack power, 220 health, and 2% crit. It's an incredible chest. It's an incredible chest, and it replaces another incredible chest. So let's have an F in chat for the Savage Gladiator chain. You served us well. We're still going to have our Karaji Executioner Bracers from Phase 5. Once again, if you don't need the hit, you could potentially go to Risk Guards of Stability for a little bit more attack power, but in general, the Karaji Executioner Bracers are just the best thing you can wear, so we're going to wear those. In Phase 6, we will still be wielding the Dark Edge of Insanity from Cthulhu. There is a pretty much direct side grade to the Dark Edge of Insanity in the Severance off of Patchwork, so if you were never able to pick up the Dark Edge of Insanity, the Severance will serve you really well. They're essentially the same axe, they will do about the same DPS. Under certain circumstances, Severance might even do more DPS, but we're talking about the difference between, like, half of 1 DPS or one DPS. Like, they're essentially the same item. So if you never get your Dark Edge, your Severance will be waiting there for you in Phase 6. And briefly just want to touch on the Might of Menethil. The weapon damage and the weapon speed of the Might of Menethil makes it an absolutely insane weapon. Any mob that is below level 63, Might of Menethil will do more damage than any other weapon in the game. So any trash pack, any little mini boss, whatever, in the game, Might of Menethil is going to be your go-to weapon. In PvP, Might of Menethil is going to be your go-to weapon. And just due to the fact that the weapon damage on Might of Menethil is so incredibly high, if you get fights short enough, much like in the way that we could use the Hand of Rag over the Spinal Reaper or the Drake Talon Cleaver in earlier phases, you might be able to get away with using the Might of Menethil and actually parse higher, just because it is that much beefier of a weapon. Legitimately, it is your best trash DPS weapon, so if your guild is concerned with clearing the raid quickly, this should still probably be prioed to you versus anybody who's going to PvP with it for a weekend or use it to level in Burning Crusade. That being said, I would like to say that if you do get a chance to pick up misplaced servo arms, remember these things are not unique, and we are going to be dual wielding in the Burning Crusade. So if you can pick up one or potentially two misplaced servo arms, these weapons will serve you incredibly well leveling in Burning Crusade, you know, given that we're allowed to transfer these characters over and everything, but unless you're on the Alliance, and since you're an enhancement shaman, you're definitely not on the Alliance, no one else is going to want a misplaced servo arm, so you should be able to get two of these things if two of them drop in the span of Phase 6. So have those things on your radar for sure. You're going to be using Dark Edge or Severance, and also absolutely pick up of Might of Menethil. It is your birthright, just in the way that Hand of Rag was your birthright, and Dark Edge of Insanity is your birthright. You're an enhancement shaman, you should be prioed these two-handed weapons. We're not even going to talk about Totem of Rage because it's a joke, but it's the only thing we really have to equip in that slot, so LOL. Gloves of Enforcement. Same gloves we've been wearing since Phase 5, hopefully. These are fantastic gloves. They check every box other than, you know, the fact that they're leather and they don't have int, but you really can't go wrong with Gloves of Enforcement. The Belt of Never-Ending Agony, probably one of the best DPS belts in the game. It's, you know, basically a onslaught girdle, but leather. Again, can't really go wrong with the Belt of Never-Ending Agony. We're going to talk about a build in a little bit that emphasizes intelligence and different enchants over just raw physical DPS, in which case we'll be switching this thing out. But if you're going for the most possible damage on paper, then you're going to be using the Belt of Never-Ending Agony. In the exact same vein, you will also be using the Leggings of Apocalypse. These are the best, if not one of the best, DPS legs in the game. An absolute astronomical amount of critical strike and 30 attack power. Though, once again, we are very, very close to, if not over, the crit cap with Elemental Devastation, which you should still be spec'd as. In which case, you can swap back to the Scaled Sand River leggings, which also nets you a tiny amount, but a useful bit of intelligence and more attack power. So either of these are going to be pretty great for your endgame, and then you also have the Warsong Gulch rewards now, but they're completely overshadowed by Scaled Sand Reaver or Leggings of Apocalypse. Boots of the Vanguard, the flex option if you don't need hit. Obviously, Boots of the Shadow Flame if you do need hit, but Boots of the Vanguard basically give you better DPS stats without the hit, so if you don't need the hit, then you wear Boots of the Vanguard. Then the one item in the game that I'm willing to give a pass on for not having stats, because rings don't really have a ton of stamina anyway. So if you're gonna wear something that doesn't have stamina, maybe wear a ring, it'll be okay. Your other option, if you don't want to wear something that doesn't have any stamina, would be the Master Dragon Slayer ring or potentially a Quick Strike ring at the same time, with your Ring of Karaji Fury, which you should be able to pick up from Viscidus. If you do not pick up this ring from Viscidus, you could, again, side grade it to a Quick Strike ring, or maybe a Don Julio's band, or, you know, whatever. There's a lot of great options for rings. These are just the two that are going to net you the most DPS on paper. Now, we're finally at the trinkets. And the trinkets are probably going to be some of the most hotly contested items in the game, as they always have been, and as they will continue to be. And you see the two trinkets I have in this configuration, being Drakefang Talisman and Kiss of the Spider, are probably going to be two of the hardest items in the game for you to acquire. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to acquire them, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't put them on your priority list, but I know for a fact that Kiss of the Spider is going to be BIS for literally any physical DPS in the game. Like, rogues are going to want this, warriors are going to want this. Hell, as far as I know, dude, hunters probably want this thing. Who the hell knows? I don't know what hunters do. But you stack Kiss of the Spider with Flurry, with Rend buff, with the Haste enchant on your gear, you're going to be doing some just absolutely quick bonks. The quickest bonks. The fastest bonks. Scaling-wise, Kiss of the Spider is going to make you do the most possible DPS. Now, all of that being said, you would be totally fine with a Slayer's Crest, or perhaps you picked up a Jam Gabar from Phase 5. Additionally, I've even made a video about it, the Badge of the Swarm Guard. Unless your raid runs improved exposed armor on a rogue, Badge of the Swarm Guard is actually going to be the BIS trinket in the game for you. Maybe Kiss of the Spider comes really close, but Badge of the Swarm Guard is incredibly powerful, and you can use Badge of the Swarm Guard at the same time as other trinkets. So you could always equip Badge of the Swarm Guard and Kiss of the Spider and use them at the exact same time, and then be pulling some truly massive deeps. Now, obviously Drakefang Talisman's the best passive trinket in the game. It might be better to have the Drakefang Talisman equipped and then shuffle through your other on-use trinkets depending on which ones you have. But the name of the game has always been collect as many trinkets as possible and use them in the correct situations and have them auto-queue via your item rack. Now, with all of this out of the way, with the best on paper out of the way, we're going to go into some potential changes you can make to this to maybe better suit your playstyle, or perhaps not have 2700 unbuffed mana. So I just want to briefly go into an option you could pursue to focus on the ZG enchant instead of triple haste, and swap out a couple of pieces of gear that also have intelligence on them as opposed to ones that don't. So very quickly, just swapping the ZG enchant on Crown of Destruction and the leg slot. We are also switching scaled Sand Reaver leggings from the Leggings of Apocalypse, so we get that extra 10 int, and as before, we can make up for the crit elsewhere via the glove enchant, which we also swapped, and we're really close to crit cap, so having all of that crit, especially if we can get a hold of a Storm Rage's Talisman here, it's not that big of a deal to lose 0.75 crit or whatever we lost. It wasn't that much. So that's the main thing here, guys, is people ask me all the time, they're like, what are my helm, leg, and glove enchants, and why do I use haste, and is haste still BIS? And the answer to that question is yes, haste is still BIS. Haste will always scale the best with world buffs, but if you want the class to maybe feel better, if having that little mana doesn't fit your personal playstyle, you want to be able to totem twist a bit more, you want to maybe not have to, use major mana potions every single cooldown, then this would be a way to go to do that without losing too much DPS. So I just wanted to put that out there to show you that yes, it is an option, and it's not a bad option in any way whatsoever. Now we're going to talk about our Tauren and Troll boys, the boys that have been having the hardest time getting to their 8 to 9% hit cap are now going to have an incredibly easy, or perhaps easier time getting to that hit cap, because by phase 6 we are just tripping and falling over hit gear. It's everywhere. So the only thing you actually have to change from your Orc full BIS to your Tauren full BIS is going to be the Boots of the Vanguard to the Boots of the Shadowflame, because you'll see in Orc full BIS, we're actually 1% over the hit cap. So we just need those Boots of Shadowflame to get ourselves up to 9% hit. And I just want to point out before I get like flamed in the comments because of this greater agility enchant, yeah, obviously you're going to use movement speed, but you know, we're talking about like maximum on paper DPS, and you would go with agility. Again, unless we're bumping up against the crit cap. But I just want, you know, I'm not going to change these lists for that one stupid enchant, because I've already done like 30 minutes of voicing for this. So just understand that you would use movement speed, okay? Moving on. So for my Tauren Troll boys, not only do you get to get Prio'd Might of Menethil, because it is your Bis weapon on bosses and trash, but all you have to do to be wearing the exact same gear as your Orc brethren is just wear those Shadowflame boots, and you know what? They basically look the same too, so we're all gonna be one big, happy enhancement family at the end of the day. And with the Taurens and the Trolls here, I feel like it would be a good time to point out a BIS list that perhaps didn't utilize two of the best trinkets in the game, considering how hard it is for us to get gear. Like, understandably, you might not have a Drakefang Talisman, you might not have a Kiss of the Spider. Totally get it. What I would say is, if you're not going to be able to get those two trinkets, then your guild should, at the very least, try to be less giant pieces of shit and at least give you two of the other best trinkets in the game, since, you know, you probably show up on time with full world buffs all the time. I don't know. I'm just saying. So in this list, I've put in the Jom Gabar and the Badge of the Swarm Guard, which is actually the combination I run right now in Phase 5. It's actually easier than you think to get a Jom Gabar right now, because everybody is saving DKP for that Kiss of the Spider or for that Slayer's Crest, so it's going to be a little bit easier to pick up a Jom Gabar, and I don't think a lot of people still realize the power of the Badge of the Swarm Guard, especially if your raid doesn't run improved exposed armor, which a lot of people don't. So you can pick up this combination right here, and then you'll have your auto-queuing trinkets on item rack, switch that back to, you know, perhaps Black Hand's Breath and a Hand of Justice when they're both on cooldown, and then you'll have two incredibly powerful on-use trinkets, and you can use them at the same time. Now, we've lost 3% hits, so we have to get 3% hits somewhere, so we swapped into Fury of the Forgotten Swarm, which is a AQ20 trash drop trinket. I've seen a few of these. They're not too hard to get. If you don't have that one, then obviously you're going to go with your Ani Tooth pendant. We have a Cloak of Concentrated Hatred. If you don't have that one, you might be able to pick up a Cloak of the Scourge in Nax, as we previously talked about. And that's my alarm, and I'm going to leave this in the video because I have to log in for Onyxia. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is the Master Dragon Slayer ring, because you could use that instead of the Ring of Karachi Fury, or perhaps you could use a Don Julio's Band if you so desire. But that's going to be a way that you can make up for that lack of 3% hit, or, as always, if you really want, you can just dump these points out of Elemental and put them back into Restoration for Nature's Guidance. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say, don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Fulfill your destiny. Find the true glory of having a 1-second Fire Nova Totem and Elemental Devastation. Trust me, once it happens to you, you'll never go back. So that'll be it for our Phase 6 PVE BIS guide, guys. Remember, for all of these BIS lists, this is an overview. These probably are the best possible damage you could do on paper, but given the way your raid plays, given the way you pull, given your playstyle, given what you have to do in the raid, this might not be absolute BIS for you. And BIS for you is going to be slightly different for everybody. So always remember, guys, BIS is a state of mind. You do you. But this is a framework, okay? And utilize this framework to build your own personal sets. And I think that'll be the best thing to do moving forward. So if you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, toss them in the comments below, hit me up in Discord, follow me on Twitch at the Holderhek, subscribe here because we're going to move into Burning Crusade Classic and Shadowlands, and I'm going to be pumping out even more content as fast as I possibly can until my eyes bleed, which I feel like they are already beginning to do, so that's great. I'll talk to you guys later, and, yeah, bye-bye.